Quote Love, Unquote by New Amsterdam. Chapter 3. The lights are so blinding that, for a moment, Kirishima can't even see. He slid across the seat to get out of the car, but now he stumbles. Someone grabs him by the upper arm and hoists him to his feet, and before he can mumble out a thanks, he realizes that someone is Bakugou. Bakugou straightens up, lets go of Kirishima, and steps away from him. And, in that moment, he transforms completely. It's nothing truly obvious. He doesn't smile, doesn't affect affability, doesn't say a word. But he lifts his head and looks out at the crowd with a challenge in his fiery eyes. And instead of the person who'd been sitting in the back of the car with Kirishima, closed off, internally focused, guarded, he becomes a star, giving off light and attracting everyone's notice. He doesn't smile, but his expression isn't sullen. It's aloof and confident and cocky in the most attractive way. There's something inviting about him, enticing, even when someone calls out his name and he barely spares them a second glance. This is the Bakugou Katsuki of the magazines, the billboard ads, the TV commercials. This is Bakugou, who's captured the public's attention since his first role at the age of 4. This is Bakugou, who can get away with throwing tantrums in front of the press, because even when he's angry and bratty, they all remember what he can be in other moments. And not many people are strong enough to resist this light, this gravitational pull. Kirishima definitely isn't strong enough. He walks with wide strides to catch up with Bakugou, falls in step as they head down the long carpet towards the front of the theater. Massive set-up shows of Ground Zero's poster, larger-than-life shots of Bakugou and Todoroki walking away from explosions, of Yaoyorozu holding a knife to Todoroki's throat, of Bakugou jumping from a plane towards the ocean. Even amongst these perfect, monumental images of himself, it's the real Bakugou who draws all eyes. He faces forward, eyes focused straight ahead, gazing out at something the rest of them can't notice because he's dominating their vision. Then, the torrent of noise and cheers abates for a moment, and Kirishima hears someone say, "Is that him? The boyfriend?" And just like that, the focus of the crowd shifts. Kirishima feels the eyes of hundreds train on him, the weight of their curiosity a suffocating force. He pauses mid-step, unsure of what he's supposed to do. Does he answer the question? How would he even tell who asked it? He and Bakugou are dating, supposedly, but are they boyfriends? A strong grip encircles his waist as Bakugou tugs Kirishima forward. His hand is softer than it has any right to be, even as he squeezes around Kirishima's wrist so tightly it's almost painful. "Keep up," he mutters out of the side of his mouth. "You act like you've never had a camera pointed at you before." Kirishima has definitely had cameras pointed at him before, but never several hundred of them at once, and usually only when he's performing. Hearing a dozen flashbulbs go off every moment is not the same as someone taking shots of him while he's on stage. And yet Bakugou navigates this environment as easily as breathing, and more comfortably than he had at the party, the cafe, or the car ride. He's in his element, tugging Kirishima down the carpet to reach the professional press at the entrance of the theater. Once there, he stops and spits out, "That son of a... he's late." "Who?" Kirishima asks, keenly aware of the fact that Bakugou hasn't let go of him yet. "Todoroki, that icy bastard, I'm gonna kill him." "Bakugou-san," a voice calls out, high-pitched and chipper. "A moment of your time, please." Bakugou mutters something under his breath and straightens up. "Come on," he says to Kirishima. "Interviews." Surely, Bakugou can manage those himself. But he pulls Kirishima along with him, and when he stops in front of a pretty reporter with an oversized microphone, he makes sure Kirishima is right next to him. The reporter smiles as she introduces herself, then sets off asking questions about the film. They're typical. How much training did Bakugou have to do? What was the dynamic like on set? What was it like working with the director? What was his favorite scene to shoot? Bakugou has practiced clipped answers to each of her questions, full of interesting sound bites filtered through his gruff personality. Then, the tenor of the interview shifts. "So," the reporter says, smiling coyly at Kirishima. "Who's this, Bakugou-san?" Bakugou rolls his eyes. "Like you don't know." "I might," the reporter agrees. "But isn't it polite to introduce your companion?" Bakugou gives her a look of thinly veiled exasperation. "Since when do I care about being polite?" Kirishima, sensing that Bakugou's fuse had been lit, steps in before he has a chance to explode. "I'm Kirishima. I've never been to a movie premiere before." The reporter beams at him. But we'll see you at more from now on, I hope? Kirishima laughs. I mean, if Bakugou keeps inviting me. Bakugou's grip on his wrist grows impossibly tighter, but Kirishima does his best to ignore it. The reporter laughs prettily. Would you say that's likely? I mean, this is only the second time we've seen you together. How serious are you? I don't do things if I'm not fucking serious about it, Bakugou mutters under his breath. Kirishima shrugs. That's a tough question, don't you think? I mean, no matter how much hope you have for a relationship, it's always up in the air, right? The reporter nods earnestly. Of course, but, of course, you have to know what a surprise it was, seeing Bakugou-san with you and not Uraraka-san. How did you two meet? Bakugou opens his mouth to answer, and then his brow wrinkles. He hadn't thought this through, Kirishima realizes. He doesn't know what to say. At a concert, Kirishima cuts in. At my Riot's concert, that is. You know Hagakure Toru? She's a fan of ours. She brought Bakugou along to a concert, and the rest is history, you could say. History is news while it's still happening, the reporter says, and we all certainly find the two of you newsworthy. Bakugou rolls his eyes. Get a new hobby, he tells her. The reporter only laughs in response, before a coordinator waves her on and calls in the next interviewer. And so it goes, for several minutes. Bakugou answers questions about the movie. Kirishima cuts in to answer questions about their relationship. He respins the story of Hagakure and Bakugou coming to Riot's concert enough times that he almost believes it's true. Finally, there's a break in the crowd, and Bakugou turns to look at Kirishima suspiciously. How are you so good at this? He demands. Bakugou has to stop to think about it. Is he good at this? I'm just talking, he says with a shrug. I wasn't really planning on it, but everyone's nice, and they're not asking super invasive questions. You were nervous about the cameras, but interviews are fine? Bakugou's glaring now, like Kirishima's a puzzle he can't figure out. I guess, Kirishima says. I haven't really thought about it. Idiot. Bakugou starts to turn away, then glances back to ask, Who told you? About the concert. What are you talking about? Kirishima asks, but the rest of his words are swallowed up as the crowd, once again, explodes. Bakugou turns towards the noise and hisses under his breath. Motherfucker. A shiny metallic blue car is pulled up to the red carpet, and getting out of it is Todoroki Shoto. It's hard to compare Bakugou's presence to Todoroki's. Bakugou is blazing and hot, too powerful to ignore. Todoroki has a subtler presence that draws attention all the same, graceful but strong. He's wearing a blue suit several shades lighter than Kirishima's, and a white shirt, his tie perfectly straight as he gets out of the car. His hair, half white, half red, should make him look ridiculous, but instead it just adds to his almost otherworldly beauty. Marring one side of his face is the scar he's had since childhood, one that somehow adds gravitas and character to his appearance, rather than detracting from it. He turns back to help someone else out of the car, and once again, the crowd explodes with cheers. Yaoyorozu Momo steps out onto the red carpet with a grace that Kirishima can't quite describe. Her red gown flows out from behind her, diamonds glittering at her ears. Her dark hair is pulled away from her face, and she stops every few paces to wave and smile at the crowd, blushing all the while. Todoroki walks at one side of her, not responding in the same way to the onlookers, but enticing just as many cheers. Those assholes, Bakugou is saying. They're late on purpose to make an entrance. I wanted to be the last one here. I'm gonna strangle Todoroki with this shitty rich boy tie, and then I'm gonna set him on fucking fire. Whoa, dude, Kirishima says, resting a hand on Bakugou's shoulder. Calm down. Maybe? Bakugou rounds on him. I am calm, he spits, even though, as he speaks, his mouth opens so wide Kirishima can count all his teeth. Whatever you say, Kirishima says, with a sigh. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu have made their way up the red carpet, and Bakugou stops hissing under his breath long enough to take a step away from Kirishima. His eyes narrow as Todoroki and Yaoyorozu step away from each other to take separate pictures. Then, Bakugou smirks and shifts his position just as Todoroki begins walking towards him. It takes a moment for Kirishima to realize what he's doing, but sure enough, Bakugou is trying to trip Todoroki on the red carpet. Kirishima takes a moment to be stunned by the sheer pettiness of that action, but then he's stepping towards Bakugou and grabbing his shoulder, pulling him back. "Hey, cut that out," he says, pulling Bakugou out of Todoroki's path. "What the hell?" Bakugou grouses, twisting away to shake Kirishima off. "Let go of me!" They walk together, Bakugou trying to pull away and Kirishima trying to keep his grip. And then Kirishima feels his expensive shoes slip against the red carpet. Bakugou's eyes widen with surprise. It's amazing how different he looks in that moment. Eyes round and lips slightly parted, and then he's falling backwards. Everything happens in slow motion, and for a minute they're suspended in air, weightless. Then they hit the ground with an audible thump. Bakugou on his back, and Kirishima poised over him. Bakugou still looks shell-shocked, as though it never occurred to him that he could fall before. He lays there, looking up at Kirishima, his brow furrowing slowly as he processes. Kirishima is poised on his hands and knees over Bakugou, their faces too close together. If Kirishima leaned down at this moment, just a bit, his lips would brush against Bakugou's. If he let that happen, would Bakugou still have that same awestruck expression? A camera clicks, then another, and another, until all the noise blends together in a wave that washes over them both. Bakugou moves as though trying to push Kirishima away, but before he can, Kirishima leans down to whisper in his ear. "Cameras," he reminds Bakugou. "Don't freak out, remember?" "You don't need to fucking tell me that," Bakugou hisses at him. Still, he keeps his expression relatively neutral, as Kirishima gets up and helps him to his feet. The cameras are still flashing around them, and both Bakugou and Kirishima stand awkwardly, a few paces apart. "Bakugou!" Todoroki calls out, over the noise. He's standing to one side, face impassive as though he's seen none of what just happened. "They want all three of us for interviews." Bakugou glances back at Kirishima. "Go wait over there," he says carelessly, as he shoves his hands into his pockets and trudges towards Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. Kirishima is left to watch from afar, as the three of them stand in front of a crowd of reporters and photographers. Yaoyorozu is between Todoroki and Bakugou, smiling at the cameras and taking the lead with interviews. Todoroki answers in curt sentences, and Bakugou's facial expressions give away more than his words. But somehow, looking at them, it's easy to see that they've spent months shooting this movie. They fit together, somehow. Like the way Kirishima fits with Jiro and Ashido and Kaminari. The crowd shifts, obscuring the three actors from view. Kirishima frowns. There are other actors from the film here, the directors and producers as well, plus a crowd of other celebrities who enter the theatre without stopping by the reporters. But Kirishima is still waiting, wondering what he should do. "Bakugou-san?" A voice calls out to him. He blinks, and when his vision clears, Yaoyorozu is standing right there in front of him. She's even prettier up close. Oil dark eyes and perfect skin, a smile that could probably charm anyone but Bakugou. "Oh," he says. "Hi. We're going inside now to watch the film. Are you coming?" Kirishima nods, and Yaoyorozu waits as he walks over to her. She walks with the commanding grace of a general, or some ancient goddess of war in a video game. Kirishima doesn't know what to say to her until he remembers, "Oh, Jiro said hi. You talked to her a few nights ago. I don't know if you remember." Yaoyorozu pauses mid-step, looking at Kirishima with bright eyes. "Really?" Yeah. You spoke to her and Kaminari for a while." Yaoyorozu shakes her head. "No, I meant, Jiro-san wanted you to say hi to me?" Kirishima huffs out a laugh. "Of course. She was actually really disappointed she couldn't come tonight. She sees all your movies." Yaoyorozu's cheekbones have gone the same color as her dress. "I didn't think, they're not really her style. She's so, punk rock, and I'm..." Whoa, Kirishima says, holding up his hands. Yeah, Jiro's the coolest, but she's also really sincere. I'm sure she'll enjoy this one too." Yaoyorozu smiles again, less stately and more human, somehow. "I hope so. You'll have to tell me what you think too." "Hurry up," Bakugou calls, when Kirishima and Yaoyorozu reach the entrance of the theatre. He's standing next to Todoroki, and Kirishima can't sense any real tension between them now that they're out of the cameras. "Sorry," Kirishima says brightly, as he reaches Bakugou and the two of them head into the theatre. I got a little distracted. Bakugou huffs, but the two of them walk side by side until they've reached their seats. Once the movie starts, it's hard to remember that Kirishima's here as anything more than a fan. The lights dim, the music starts, and Kirishima rocks back and forth in his chair as Ground Zero pops up on the screen in bright white letters. Next to him, he hears Bakugou huff, but in the darkness he can't make out his expression. The movie starts out typically enough. Todoroki's an ace spy who's become washed out since he lost his last partner. Bakugou is an up-and-coming agent, eager to prove himself Todoroki's equal or better. Their partnership is a disaster from the start, with Todoroki hesitating while Bakugou rushes in, the two of them completely out of sync with each other. The action sequences come fast and brutal, with Bakugou and Todoroki losing embarrassingly in the first few fights, while they still can't manage to work together. As the deeper plot unfolds, Yaoyoro's character enters. She's the head of the intelligence underworld, a shadowy figure in crisp black suits who commands a formidable army. When she breaks into the action, she's all fierce smirks and cackling laughter. "Oh shit," Kirishima says, after a particularly powerful scene. "She's acting like you." "What?" Kirishima demands out of the corner of his mouth. "What are you talking about, shit for brains?" "No, she isn't." "She totally is," Kirishima insists. "She's even got that murderous squint thing you do. I bet you 20,000 yen that she's doing it on purpose." "Shut up!" Bakugou hisses, sitting back in his chair. "Watch the fucking movie." At the climax of the film, Todoroki's character faces off with Yaoyoro's, realizing at last that she's his former partner. Seeing the normally placid Todoroki's face break with grief, Kirishima is struck by the depth of his acting. For the entire film, he'd been so closed off, it was easy to think he had no emotions at all. But now, they all come roaring to the surface. His grief and anger and joy all mingle together as he points his gun at her, hand shaking. On screen, Yaoyoro is Bakugou in a headlock. Bakugou, who'd rushed in when Todoroki had hung back. Now, Yaoyoro might kill him before Todoroki has the chance to stop her. Kirishima's heart beats in his ribcage, the tension of the scene sinking into his bones. His mind scrambles to come up with a way out for both Todoroki and Bakugou, because, even after their dysfunctional journey, surely there's more they can learn from each other. Surely the agency still needs both of them to recover from this. Todoroki's character drops his gun just before he lunges for Yaoyoro's. She tosses Bakugou aside, but not before setting off multiple shots of her own. She and Todoroki tangle together, attacking each other brutally. Blood stains their clothes, tears gathering in Todoroki's eyes as he manages to subdue her. Kirishima's holding his breath, but then the magic is broken. Beside him, Bakugou has gotten to his feet and is walking past him, out of the row of seats. "Where are you going?" Kirishima whispers. Bakugou doesn't answer him. Kirishima turns his attention back to the film, just in time to see Yaoyoro and Todoroki die in each other's arms. Bakugou stands over them, looking shell-shocked. Blood stains his cheeks as he leans down over the bodies, his expression finally shifting from shock to resolve. By the time the credits roll, the real Bakugou still hasn't returned. As the theater lights turn on, Kirishima pushes his way through the crowd to look for Bakugou. The crowd is buzzing happily, and he sees Todoroki and Yaoyoro standing with the director, exchanging congratulations. He wonders if they, too, are asking where Bakugou's gotten off to. Or maybe this is normal for him. Kirishima makes it out into the hallway, and sees twin shadows cast against the wall across the theater. He heads towards them, then stops short when he hears Bakugou's harsh voice. "Just what the fuck do you think you're doing here? Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Kirishima doesn't round the corner. This might not be the best time to interrupt. But he also doesn't move away, or make any effort not to hear the rest. "I wasn't trying to hide," another voice, softer but not hesitant, says. "Todoroki-kun invited me. I came to support you. Both of you." Bakugou lets out a strangled noise. "Do I look like I need your support? I'm not like you. I don't need to ride other people's coattails just to be successful, you—" "Stop yelling," the other person says. It has nothing to do with success. I want both of you to do well. Of course Shut up." Bakugo hisses. What part of "I never want to see your goddamn face again" is it so hard to understand? See Todoroki on your own fucking time. Suck his dick for all I care. Just stay the hell away from me. The other person lets out a sigh. You know that's impossible. And if you won't listen to me about the rest, or accept my apology, you did it on purpose, Bakugo says, his voice coming out hoarse and strained. You can trick every other fucking idiot on this planet, but I know you can't make a fool out of me again. Kirishima stands just out of view, increasingly confused. It's no secret that Bakugo has an anger problem, or maybe more than one, but this is more than he's been prepared for, and in any case, he can hear the thunder of 100 steps behind him. Whoever Bakugo was chewing out, the two of them are about to be caught by a crowd of people. Yes, I did think it was a great movie, Kirishima calls out, loud and exaggerated. So wonderful to see so many rising stars. He doesn't really know what people say after movies, but he stamps his feet a few times, hoping that Bakugo hears. Maybe he wants to be caught screaming at whoever this is, but Kirishima is at least going to give him a bit of a warning first. It's Bakugo who peeks out from around the corner first, eyes bloodshot and jaw clenched. When he spots Kirishima, he barks out, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Bakugo jabs a thumb over his shoulder, where he's sure the rest of the crowd must be visible by now. Well, darling, you kind of ditched me, and you're my ride home. Bakugo's face contorts at the endearment. Do you want to die? I'm sorry, did you just call Kachan darling? A second person has stepped out from the hallway now, slightly shorter than Bakugo and Kirishima, with a wild tangle of dark green hair and a face covered in freckles. His pointed nose and wide eyes are familiar because, like Uraraka and Todoroki and Bakugo, he'd been a star on UA. Midoriya Izuku, recently cast in a string of films with the legendary director Yagi Toshinori, is covering his face with both hands. Whether he's trying to hide laughter or horror, Kirishima can't tell. Shut the fuck up, Deku, Bakugo says. No, you're right, Kirishima agrees. That doesn't really suit him. What's that you called him? Kachan? Midoriya grins crookedly. At the same time, Bakugo grabs Kirishima by the collar and yanks him forward. I will kill you, he promises. I will bury you alive with Deku, and you'll have to listen to his stupid fucking muttering until you finally suffocate. Is that what you want? You probably shouldn't threaten to kill me so much, Kirishima says, as conversationally as he can with Bakugo's face so close to his own. I mean, if the press hears, I guess we could spin it somehow, but then they're gonna think we're into some really kinky stuff. Shut up, Bakugo orders, shoving Kirishima away. Midoriya is covering his face again. Kirishima feels starstruck, again, standing in front of him. He's in a deep green suit that somehow doesn't clash with his hair, but he's paired it with a beat-up red sneakers and a tie that looks like it's just been stuffed into his shirt. On UA, Midoriya had played the central character. He'd grown from a scrawny, nervous-looking boy to one of the most endearing characters on television, to the point that the show's ratings had survived his risky endgame romance. There you are, Yaoyorozu calls out to them, as she and Kirishima approach. Oh, Midoriya-san, I didn't know you were coming. Midoriya smiles sheepishly, rubbing at the back of his neck. It was sort of a surprise. Yaoyorozu glances between him and Bakugo. I see. Todoroki huffs out a puff of air. I'm glad you made it, he says to Midoriya, and his expression doesn't shift much, but his voice is suddenly warmer than it had been on the red carpet. Midoriya grins at him. Wouldn't have missed it for the... His voice is cut off as Bakugo elbows him in the stomach. Hey, Kirishima says, but Midoriya waves him off. It's fine, he says, straightening his shirt. He glances at Bakugo, pursing his lips. Kachan, you... I'm leaving, Bakugo announces. What? Yaoyorozu asks. But we're all going to my home. For tea. Is he invited? Bakugo asks, jerking his head in Midoriya's direction. Yaoyorozu hesitates for only a moment. Of course he is, Bakugo-san. Kirishima, you're welcome to come as well. We're leaving, Bakugo repeats, and this time he grabs Kirishima's wrist and starts pulling him away from the others. Hey, Kirishima says, wait a second. I said we're not going! Bakugou roars, not even turning as he speaks. Come on, we have to get out of here before the fucking cameras follow us. Behind them, Kirishima hears Midoriya say, I can go, I'm sorry if... Let him go, Todoroki says. Is it because he wants to spend more time with his boyfriend? Yaoyorozu asks. Boyfriend? Midoriya squeaks. Bakugou's grip tightens around Kirishima's wrist, and he doesn't let go until the black town car pulls up and they're able to get inside. As soon as they're seated, Bakugou twists bodily to stare out the window, chin balanced against his hand. Dude, Kirishima says, once he's caught his breath. What the hell was that about? Fuck off, Bakugou mutters, without turning his head. Just shut the hell up, Kirishima. Kirishima's brows furrow. No, hey, wait a minute. You don't just get to yank me around like that. If I'm gonna change my whole life over this, you at least have to be open with me. This isn't gonna work otherwise. Bakugou lets out a breath through his teeth. You think I give a fuck? Go ahead, walk away. It hurts, more than it should considering this was only a business agreement. But Kirishima doesn't back down so easily. No, he says, leaning into Bakugou's space. Look, wouldn't it have made sense to go to Yaoyorozu's? If someone saw and took pictures or whatever? You're an idiot, Bakugou tells him. Before Kirishima can complain, he continues. She's not gonna have a publicity party. They're literally gonna sit around her giant-ass mansion and have tea, like friends. Like fuck I wanna be there. They seemed like your friends, earlier. Thinking that Bakugou trying to trip Todoroki probably doesn't count against that assessment. I don't have fucking friends, Bakugou says. He's still turned away from Kirishima, still not meeting his eyes. He doesn't say it with any more emotion than his usual grousing. No heat, no fire behind his words. And yet they hit Kirishima as though Bakugou had screamed them. He thinks about the amount of passion Bakugou had displayed on screen, the subtlety of his emotions, and he thinks about Bakugou's presence on the red carpet, how everyone clamored to be nearer to him. It just doesn't make sense. Regardless of Bakugou's attitude, he's clearly the type of person who pulls others towards him. So why isn't anyone close to him? Why is he so determined to walk away from the people who might be his friends? I think we've been going about this the wrong way, Kirishima says, slumping down against the leather seat. Bakugou doesn't respond, so Kirishima continues. We're never gonna sell this if we don't actually get to know each other. Don't tell me you've got some harebrained plan, Bakugou mutters. Kirishima grins. Oh, I do. And I think Sero's gonna want you to go along with it.